Hello and welcome to Assessment in Focus, the podcast where we invite guests to tell us the real stories of digital assessment transformation, innovation and enhancement. Flexible assessment with integrity is a shared goal between higher education and Inspera. So we're here to discover how institutions around the world are assessing today and beyond. I'm your host, Ishan, Global Client Evangelist at Inspera, and today I'm joined by Stephanie and Edel from SOAS. Stephanie has worked at SOAS for over 5 years and is currently the Assessments Technology Manager and the Product Owner of Inspera, working as a core member of the Returning Exams to Campus project. Edel has been at SOAS for over 2 years and is currently a project manager, and she project manages that project that we've talked about and other business change initiatives. Thank you very much for being on the podcast, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So, Stephanie, I want to start by asking about SOAS. It's a well-known institution, part of the University of London, but perhaps you can give our listeners just a little bit more information about the university to help place this in context.
Sure. So SOAS is one of the colleges in the University of London, and it's a unique institution, and it specialises in the study of Middle East, Africa and Asia. And we offer a variety of programmes, both languages to development studies, through to history and culture. And we have a very thriving community here and offer lots of seminars. And we have different committed centres to explore those different areas of research around the world.
Perfect. And you're also, I think, in one of the nicest bits of London, right by Russell Square, where it's actually really quite green and you can easily escape into parts of different bits of the campus where you wouldn't think you were in central London, which is really, really lovely. So it's a great place to work, I'm sure. So I've got some questions that I want to ask both of you about what you've been doing, where you see higher education assessment going. I'm going to start with, as higher education evolves, what do you see as the most critical change or changes needed in assessment practices to better align students with the skills they need in the future? And Stephanie, I'll come to you first on that question.
Yeah, sure. So I think with this question, start from the end and work backwards. So essentially, what skills do students need for the future? And once we understand that, then we can understand what skills need to be embedded in our assessment practices to better influence and support students to achieve that. So I think we also know what's going to play a big part in the future in the skill set that students need, and that's digital technology. And with that in mind, I think the answer lies in our student body. So when we think about the multitude of unique learners who have different learning styles, different learning types, and different learning paces, and within the higher education context, we have a responsibility to provide students with different opportunities to explore different skills. And I think as well to encourage them to have a sense of curiosity about different means of assessment and the skills that they can acquire from that and apply in the real world context. So, with assessment practice, offering a variety, so not just the standard essays, but perhaps presentations, portfolios, podcasts, to really encourage students to think as well, what skills do they want to acquire, what do they enjoy, and how they can capitalise upon that.
That's really interesting to hear the different mix and the types of assessment that you've got. To what extent do you get students suggesting either new types of assessment or actually being upfront about what they want to do to be assessed? Stephanie, back to you on that one, sorry.
So the feedback that we acquire from our student body helps influence the type of assessment that we provide. So with sort of our student body, how do they want to be assessed? And what we found is there is a strong keenness to explore different avenues. So to not have perhaps 100% exam assessment, but to have more continuous and regular assessed work throughout the year in different ways, whether it's an in-class presentation or perhaps for our language students, portfolios are very popular, and it gives students those different chances to really unpack their own skill set and to really kind of explore another way that can take also the pressure off. So it's not just about assessing students where they're awarded a grade. It's a much more practical element where they can actually see their continual improvement throughout.
What change or changes do you think need to take place to equip students in the future for the kinds of things they're going to be doing day to day?
Yeah, so I think a good thing that we do here is in introducing Inspera, we set up drop-in sessions for our students, getting them involved in how to install the product, how to use the product. We also get our different assessment teams and other officers installed and running the product as well, and providing any guidance and support that we can to help them on their journey.
When we're thinking about those students and what they want to do and how they're looking to the future, at what point did you find students were, if this has happened, I'll start the question again. So, did there come a point where you had students who were saying, I don't want to write? Or equally, as a result of students using digital technology a lot in assessments, do you still have students who say, I would prefer to write? Stephanie, over to you on that question.
So students were very keen to sit their exams digitally and on campus in the instance of last year. And one of the key incentives was the ability to use their own device to type up their exam responses, and to be able to, you can type more than you could handwrite within that time. And that was a very appealing factor for students last year, and we had great feedback on that. So I think there's less of a willingness to go back to pen and paper, because there is something that everyone could probably appreciate in using a device you're comfortable and familiar with, and being able to type your responses, considering we're in a very digital age where our student body use technology predominantly, as do most age groups, but especially our student body. So yeah, there's definitely a great deal of buy-in for that aspect as opposed to the handwritten. I think we have moved away from that as a preferred means of being assessed.
So the next question was about barriers to transformation. In your experience, what's the most significant barrier, or if there's one or two, to higher education further digitizing, improving, enhancing their assessment practices, and how do they overcome those? I'll throw that open and let whoever wants to answer it first.
So I guess a major thing to improve the whole journey is to get people on board and having our staff and academics more using technology. And then I guess equipping that with students by providing, the right environments and setting them up in a digital way, as most students nowadays use digital equipment on their learning journey.
Do you find that when you're doing that, there's particular issues that you need to get in front of with, whether it's students or staff, to really help them move along and become more digitized?
Yeah, so we're providing more sessions with our academics and also with our different teams that are involved, and also for our students, and helping everyone on the whole Inspera digital exams back on campus journey.
And Edel, when we think about those sessions, are they optional? Are they mandatory? Have you tried both? What works?
So last year we had sessions for students, just drop-in sessions, so it was optional whether they wished to join them or not. And also for the staff, we had different drop-in sessions as well available. So for anyone that wanted to drop in and join us, we even had like lunchside chats as well, just to make it as relaxed as possible.
There's lots of higher education institutions out there who are thinking about how they transform and how they enhance their digital assessments. Aside from things like drop-in sessions, is there anything else that you'd tell them that they really ought to consider because it works and it's the kind of thing that they should be doing?
So one area that we really liked was the multiple choice questions that you can offer on Inspera with automatic marking. So that's quite a popular feature.
So there's in terms of that's within the platform itself, but in terms of actually getting their institution to the right place and the people within it, so the staff, the students, is there anything else that you would suggest that they really ought to, lessons learned from you that you think would really help them?
I think one of the key things is open and effective communication and involving all stakeholders as part of the process from the beginning, which is what we do. Because for individuals, if they feel part of the process, there's more buy-in than if they may feel that they're being informed. And, as is the case with lots of sectors, changing behaviour is harder than changing technology. So I think it's that organisational change that this is the challenge that we're looking to undertake, but these are the benefits that it'll bring to you. And I think what's key is bringing in those individuals that might represent certain areas, getting their buy-in, and then they can then bring that conversation back to colleagues to say, this is what we're looking at, this is how it will help, and this is how it will make, let's say marking or feedback or administrative tasks much more effective for you. So there's that, that's something that could help overcome that.
I'm not asking you to name names at all, just at the start of this question, but that buy-in, I completely agree, it's really important, and we've seen it with institutions around the world. That buy-in makes such a difference. Any hints and tips for people listening as to how to get that buy-in from people?
To be honest, I think transparency and honesty. It's being clear. If something is potentially going to be difficult, this will be difficult. But this is what we're looking to achieve. What do you think? Asking people's feedback and engagement is, I think, really key, because people want to feel heard. They want to feel engaged. And this applies to all sectors. It's not a specific group either, even in the HE context. It's change can be daunting.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to digital change. And, but one thing we know, as I've said, is that digital technology will continue to evolve, and it's an ever-changing landscape. And, there's also an opportunity, though, in that. It's about emphasising the opportunities. How can this changing landscape benefit us as a community?
And people being able to see that big picture is really, really important. Edel, over to you. You're going to add something to that point.
Sorry, I was just going to add, just bringing people along on the journey, having champions along with us from different areas, and supporting us and involving them on each stage. So I think that really worked last year.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, that's really great to hear. I don't think any conversation about education technology and education these days is one that we can have without talking about academic integrity and AI. The two seem to have gone hand in hand. Do you think that with the changes in the landscape, with the use of AI, is that going to change the way we look at integrity? Is it just another thing that's part of that long road of ensuring academic integrity? Where do you see it? And over to either of you to decide who wants to answer first.
So I can kick that response off. So, yeah, obviously I mean, AI in some form has been around for a long time, but it's definitely become more prominent in recent years, especially in the HE context. We know that the technology will continue to evolve, so it's not going anywhere, and that applies to both digital tools and artificial intelligence. I think the question then becomes, how do we enable educators to make positive decisions around academic integrity? And how do we maintain the value of assessment, whichever type you choose to take? I think it's encouraged people to rethink how they define academic integrity. I remember even when I was a student, there was a very textbook definition of academic integrity. But, you know, the positive is it's encouraged us to think, what do we want academic integrity to mean in, let's say, 2025? You know, how does that apply to assessments? And I think it's also encouraged us to be clear in ourselves and to set those clear expectations with students, because I think it can cause a great deal of anxiety for people if they feel that they might be cheating, you know, for instance. But, you know, ultimately the university environment needs to use AI responsibly, or to encourage its responsible use, to be aware of how it can enhance learning, but also to be cautious about where it may be impacting an authentic attainment as well. So, you know, I think we also need to remind ourselves what the purpose of assessment is. Why do we assess our students? You know, to measure their learning based on intended learning outcomes from a course. So how do we match up academic integrity with those different kinds of assessments? So they're just some initial thoughts around that area, but obviously it's ever changing, which is you know, it's certainly an interesting ride to be on.
It very much so. I was wondering, just for your personal view on, are we going to have to write AI policy every year? Are we going to have to write it every 6 months? Is it going to be every term? Any ideas on how far in the future we can actually make our policies in an area of something that's changing so much?
I think you can have a foundation of kind of a policy on academic integrity, but it needs to be flexible to adjust with the ways in which AI develops. I don't think any policy can be rigid in this kind of context, because the environment is always changing. But I do think that you can have perhaps a sector standard policy on, this is what academic integrity is, this is its relationship with artificial intelligence, this is what we encourage students to be mindful of, you know, educating students as well on its responsible use. You know, if it's to use it to encourage creativity, or use it to motivate yourself, or use it to help you if you're, you know, having brain fog, shall we say, as we all do at times.
Sure,
you know, but also balanced with, don't forget why you're at university and completing assessments yourself in the first place. So that would be my thought off the top of my head now, is it needs to be flexible ultimately.
okay. Something that I'm asking people across 2025, and this is on the podcast, this is at events I go to, this is whenever I get to speak to people in the edtech space. What do you see as the future of assessment, and what roles do you think digital tools will play in it? And again, over to you to decide who's going to answer first.
I'll start this one. so I think do you mean AI specifically?
No, I mean, just the general future of assessment and tools of any sort, be it AI or anything else.
Yeah. So I think we're at a really encouraging point, because there's a lot of great work being done on varied assessments. I think that's very encouraging. I think a move away from what we might call the traditional pen and paper to different ways in which we not just assess students but engage students, I think is really encouraging, is really promising. And I think that this will benefit our students of today, because it appeals more to students with different needs, different styles, and different paces of learning. And, you know, if we think digital tools and AI, there are so many ways to motivate students, because there's stronger relationships between, let's say, gamification and AI, for instance, and how we can draw students in, you know, hobbies and interests, and how we can capitalize upon that to help them in the learning journey when they're in class and when they're completing assignments as well. So it's not just using, you know, digital tools or AI for the sake of using it, but it's using it in different ways in which it can be applied to help students feel a sense of completion, to help them feel a sense of achievement as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to, I think, help highlight and resolve some of the areas we've had in the past.
I completely agree. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there for us to look at how we assess and what we're assessing. And I was really enthused to hear how SOAS is involving students in that. I know I was certainly thinking back to being a student. My involvement was looking through module outlines and seeing how that module was assessed and then working out which ones work best for me. I think that it's 25 years since I graduated this year. I think education has moved on since then, which is great. In thinking about that, moving on, what you can get from it, Edel, I know from working with many project managers over the years, the what lessons have we learned is the sort of thing that you hear from project managers all the time. So I wanted to know from your perspective, what lessons do you feel you have learned at SOAS from using Inspera as part of your assessment practice and technology stack?
So we learned a lot of lessons following last year's exams. One of the main things we did was create a number of standard operating procedures. We're calling them SOPs, and we just collected them all together and put them into an exam assessment handbook. And we just updated what we previously had to, we do so now on a cyclical basis, just making it more relevant to what we've learned and how to improve the process for our next exams. So that's proved really beneficial. So already this year, in preparing for our next set of exams, we're already a lot more ahead than what we were this time last year. So that's been really useful.
We've found that that's great, and having those standard operating procedures. Again, we've found with lots of institutions around the world that having that contextualized help and procedure that's based on the information we give you, but really, you know, what's the SOAS way of doing this? That really helps with buy-in. That helps with people wanting to use it. So it's great to hear that you're doing that. My last question is to both of you, and I'll let you answer one after the other. Could you share an example of where Inspera has transformed assessment or assessment process at SOAS, and why you've picked that one? So if you take them, one of you goes first, then the next person goes. That'll be great to hear them back to back.
Sure. So for me, what I really liked was in delivering both paper exams and digital exams, both we'd use the same application for both, so we could scan in the paper-based exams onto Inspera, so it was all held within the same application. So that was a really, really nice feature, I thought, of Inspera, that was quite popular and easier on our academics in a marking scenario.
Yeah, that familiarity, that sounds great. Stephanie, over to you.
So for me, it would be the different types of question sets and question types that you can use within Inspera. So we used a variety of, I think we used 3 or 4 last year, but it was very easy to match up a different question type with our pedagogy. So that definitely transformed the way we approached assessment. So whether it was multiple choice or whether it was a standard essay response, or as Edel mentioned, our language exams that we had, which were handwritten and scanned in, and all in the same interface, was a big plus. We were able to more accurately and succinctly match up. This course is assessed in this way, and we need something to match this. So we're able to transform our assessment so that we can kind of keep it more aligned and keep it more on the same page. So, and what we've been able to do this year is to explore some other question types to really match up so that the expectations of this is the learning outcome for this course can match up more, even more accurately with the assessment type.
That's great to hear. We're really keen to see innovative use of those question types. And when it comes to engaging academics at different institutions, they often want to hear what are other people doing with this question type, but how does it align to their pedagogy and to the learning outcomes they've got? So that's really, really great to hear. Well, that's it for our discussion today. Thank you very much to both Stephanie and Edel for joining us. It's been really fascinating to hear how SOAS have been using Inspera. And thank you to you, our listeners. If you found this useful, please like, subscribe and share via your podcast platform. And if you've got a minute, a review never hurts. That would be great. I want to come back to you just very briefly before we close out for any final thoughts that you have. So, Stephanie, final thought from you.
My final thoughts. So, I suppose it's a bit more reflective as we're preparing for our next upcoming exam season. Just looking forward to exploring, more features within Inspera, how we can continue to be innovative in assessment, how we can continue to really kind of, push the threshold for how we engage our students in the right way. So for me, it's more of a kind of my own personal roadmap, I suppose, to think, how can we improve this even further, over the next coming months.
Great stuff. Edel, over to you for your final thoughts.
Thank you. I think a really other nice feature of Inspera is the different roles, so maybe exploring that more and assigning the author role for anyone setting question sets and the invigilator roles on a monitoring basis, so it would be quite good to explore more of the roles.
Perfect. That sounds great. Well, I've really enjoyed speaking to you. I enjoyed speaking to academics around the world over the course of 2025. I'm going to be in Lancaster, Hong Kong, Washington State, and a couple of others. So if you're listening and you are at one of those events, come and talk to me. Otherwise, you can always find me on the internet. I spend an awful lot of time there, it seems. So please reach out if you have any questions and you want a chat. Assessment in Focus is brought to you by Inspera, providing flexible assessment with integrity. I've been Ishan. See you next time.